Thanks, Ashley. Welcome everyone to the February 5th meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. I'd like to do a quick roll call here and let's see, Lynn Winkler, Bill Winkler, Zeke Lagasse, and myself as members of the committee. I think that represents a quorum. Jill Campello, I believe, is still likely to join. I believe Joe Keenly as well. And then we have both Gary Persinger, Bill Stevens, and Mayor Cook, I believe, is coming on or is on. And then also—
I'm on, but I can't get video, David.
Okay, very good, Dale. Thank you. And then our new manager, Bill Zolper, and Sheena. Hello, Sheena. All right, welcome everyone. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll go from there. Thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America. To the republic
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Okay, thank you. I will now share the screen and we'll take a quick look at the agenda for today. There. Still a little slow on this sharing stuff. And pardon me, I'll be gazing up because I have a monitor above with the documents on it. So we have had our roll call and Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now adopt the agenda for today's meeting. Let me switch to that.
Move to adopt.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, let me go back again here. Let's just do this. Phil, I think I heard you move to adopt the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. That's our agenda. Thank you. Now let's move on to the approval of the meeting minutes, which is where I was starting to go, unfortunately. These are the minutes from our meeting on January 21st, just a couple of weeks ago. And I hope all of you have had a chance to read through them. They are, I believe, correct in terms of what we had covered during that meeting. Does anyone have any changes or updates from the minutes as listed here?
No, I don't have any updates or additions, but I want to say, being as I was stuck out of the country, I read them and it almost was pretty damn good, like I was there. I appreciate the in-depthness of them, Dave.
Thank you, Zeke. I'll try to make sure we cover all the essential points. I'm probably not the most detailed about this stuff, but I think we got the gist of it. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the minutes from the January 21st joint workshop, please?
I will motion to accept.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. They are accepted and they will go from draft status to regular. Okay, the next thing we have on the agenda here is to— oh, hello, Paul. How are you?
Hey, Dave. Sorry I'm late.
And Jill, let me go back to the agenda here for a moment. We first wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on the current year-to-date budget performance. And Sheena, I touched base with you this morning. I know that you probably haven't worked through and updated everything, but can you give us a high-level update, or Bill, if you prefer to do that, on the status of the year-to-date and the January financials?
Yeah, Dave, thanks. I'd ask Sheena at this point to go ahead and provide that information.
Very good.
sorry, muted. January, I just started on them. We're looking very nice. Year to date, we're positive for January, above what we, almost 100,000 more than we expected.
Wow.
Year to date, we're
For the
looking at
month of
about.
January? Just for the month of January?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Year to date, we're looking at about 400,000 to the good.
Amazing.
Revenue over expenses.
okay.
I don't have,
That extra 100,000 for January, what was that comprised of roughly?
transfer tax.
All transfer tax? or
Yeah,
most?
I don't have January's numbers in, but I will by the commissioners meeting.
Very good. And that's next Friday. Very good. Okay. All right. So then, given that we've been looking at that all along, and I think we agree that that's in pretty good shape for now, let's spend the majority of our discussion time here for the rest of today for the draft budget for the coming year. Let me share that. Okay, Sheena provided this earlier today, and it has been posted on the town website. I checked prior to the meeting, and it does reflect the updates that we had agreed to as part of the workshop that we had a couple weeks back. So on that basis, we're now up to date on that. Bill and/or Sheena, would you like to give us any things that you have updated? And by the way, let me back just for a second. Bill, I want to say welcome again. We're happy that you're here and can take part in this process so that your inputs can be reflected in this before we cast a final budget. We're supposed to deliver it to the council by around the 1st of March. And I think at this point, unless something happens to derail us, we're on track to do that. But I'm glad you're here and can participate in this level of the process. Did you want to say anything about the budgetary process from your standpoint, or can one of you or Sheena give us an update on the things that have been changed here since our last look at the budget?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And I'm really excited to be here and working for the town of Dewey now and working for you. For the last 3 days that I've been here, I've been trying to get my hands around the budget and understand everything from like DBE, why we're involved in DBE, and some of the other pieces. Sheena's done an excellent job explaining these things to me, and Ashley has provided some insight on some things, and then talking with the mayor also. I would just say, before I turn it over to Sheena, some of the things that I may have tweaked were just a couple items. One was increase the number of parking enforcement people to 10. I'm not sure what you expected on that, but I thought we should have at least 10, given looking at last year's budget where parking was with our revenue coming in from that. And then on the summer police officers, we're at 20 instead of 16. And I think part of that reasoning, at least from watching some of your previous budget workshop and budget meetings, was that some of those officers may be able to help with the parking violations and enforcing some of the ordinances in town, which would also be another possible revenue stream. And with that, unless you have any questions on those two items, I'd ask Sheena to give some brief explanation on some of the other changes that we made.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, I have to look at my notes. For people like Gary and Bill Stevens who look at every line item, and I appreciate that. You guys are totally detailed. We took postage out of every department and put it all into administration, since everything comes through us. We also found out yesterday morning, I'm not sure how it happened, but we realized how many mailings code enforcement sends out in their attempts to collect all the parking tickets. And Ashley and I then started talking about how many mailings she sends out. And we realized just how much postage we really go through in a year. So the postage is a little bit more, not a lot. There was a $35,000 line item in town expenses for street flooding. And I wasn't positive, and I talked to Bill Stevens yesterday, and he said that is coming out of another account. It doesn't have to be on our budget because it's already allocated elsewhere.
Which line, can I pause you for a second? Gina, which line is that you've changed there?
You're killing me. 601, 6012 or 601, keep going.
Okay,
601 at 2800.
It's the stormwater street flooding line item. That should be part of infrastructure, Dave.
Up.
601, 2800.
got it. Stormwater street flooding, got
Yeah.
it. So that's been removed from the budget and put it elsewhere.
Right. We upped some of the uniforms for code because their employees hadn't gotten any new uniforms in a couple years, and so we got that. We're going to be moving some vehicles around so that code has a vehicle to boot people. So we got the booting revenue got added, gas and maintenance for a code vehicle, which will definitely pay off. And then we had upped the administrative professional fees, which is 602 1100 by 15,000, because if we bring someone in here as the audit firm suggested to do the bank recs in-house, basically do what Luff does, but bring it in-house, we still have to have an outside firm quarterly verify that they're done right, as an extra set of eyes and checks and balances. Those are the main changes. I
But
mean,
it's still sitting at 65 right here,
yes,
according to what I'm seeing.
yes,
So is that the new number that you've
Yes,
upped
sir.
it to?
yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's our new number. Okay, quick recap with the changes that have been made since we last viewed this. Our new overall budget balance is,
It's basically a zero-sum balance.
drum roll, to $269 to the good. Okay, very good. Okay, any questions from anyone on the changes that have been made so far? And then I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. Okay, hearing none, that sounds good. So we're getting there. We've revamped several things to the point where we think now we have a pretty good handle on most of these numbers. Again, to recap, it's still at a 2% across the board wage increase. And as we said in the budget or the workshop last time, what our hope is that we will be able to massage that a little bit, hopefully to the upside, depending on how the final version of this comes. And we'll continue to hold that thought until we get a step or two further along here during the month. With that, I'd like to turn the discussion to a couple of things that I have a list of things that I've been carrying forward here and a couple of items. Let's do first, Gary, you had some questions that you had sent along. I don't want to list them here up one in the full detail that you sent, but do you want to give us a quick review of your thoughts and questions that you had sent?
I'm honestly not sure I can remember them all at this point. I know that one of them was with respect to, I think, code enforcement. The decrease in the FY22 budget for salary and wages. I wasn't sure what the explanation was for that. It's about a $6,000 decrease. And I wonder if that shouldn't just be the FY21 budget increased by 2% to reflect the wage increase.
Code enforcement, hold on one second, let me get to
Sure.
that.
I can give you the answer on that. There is the 2% wage increase in there. Those both Merle and Tammy had been putting in a lot of overtime due to not having a full staffing. When they have a full staffing, their overtime won't happen because they will have the employees, the seasonal people to help.
Well, I understand, but the question is, I'm talking about the FY21 budget figure. So the FY21 budget figure for salary and wages for code enforcement was really based on an assumption that code enforcement would be fully staffed. That decision to cut back on code enforcement staff happened later after the budget was already approved. So that's why it just seems, inconsistent and illogical to me.
It was based on their overtime and the necessity of having more people trained to be inside now to help with all their, the things that Merle and Tammy had to do prior.
Yeah. Just very quickly, Dave, the other couple of issues that I can recall off the top of my head, and under the police items, there were at least a couple of items. I know one is specifically were some new bulletproof jackets that the police were requesting. And I think there was some sort of outside counseling or some sort of policy review, I think that the chief was recommending for the police. And I just wondering if at some point we shouldn't consider trying to tap into the LESO equipment auction funds. Those are still sitting in the general fund. It's about $170,000 is just sitting there. It is reserved for police use. There is not a separate account. It's just part of the general fund. But just wonder for some of these items, you might want to consider tapping into some of that money.
Good idea.
Any thoughts on that?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds logical, yeah.
I agree. I didn't know that money was there.
What do we have in the bank for that, or the account for that?
Sheena would have the exact total. I think it's somewhere around $170,000. We may have committed some of that just recently.
It's 170,000, but there is about 30,000 max committed to outfitting a new vehicle.
Okay.
And possibly about 15,000 for a new gator for them if we give the old one to code.
Okay. Again, it's all reserved for police use. It's just, maybe it's time to take advantage of that money to the extent we can.
All right, should we leave that as a point that Bill will deal with throughout the year and will handle in our monthly review, or is that something we want to adjust in this draft budget?
I mean, Dave, I can go ahead and talk to Chief Mackert about that, but I think it's a great idea that Gary's bringing up that we should tap into some of that money to benefit the police department and move some of the other money that would free it up actually more than that $200 that we have now at the end of the year.
Bill, can I ask you to take care of that for us and just, let us know what the outcome of that discussion is, and if there's an adjustment that will be made to the draft budget, we'll see that in the next round.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Got it. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Gary, anything else you wanted to cover today?
That's all I can think of at the moment. Again, most of what I have were just kind of minor tweaks for the most part.
That's pretty good from memory. I'll give you 3 stars on that one. Okay. The next thing I'd like to do briefly is to bring up a short discussion on an article that Lynn Winkler had forwarded to me earlier today, the link. And if I can do this quickly. I'm going to just give a quick preface of this. It's apparently an article that came through USA Today, but was in the local Delaware newspapers about the Ocean City's work on, their figures and the COVID effect. Lynn, do you want to give a 1-minute overview of why you thought this was important for us to look at, and any comments?
Sure. As always, we're always looking ahead at income streams. And I think since we have a new town manager, that we ought to bring these things up, and hopefully through the city liaisons, we can keep an eye on this and perhaps jump right on that if they get something good.
Okay. I think this has to do with the collection of taxes from VRBO and Airbnb predominantly. And I know that's an issue that's been discussed a little bit before. Some people choose to collect the tax themselves, at least on the VRBO side, I'm aware, because that's what I do, and then send it at the appropriate times for the accommodations tax. VRBO does give you the option to have them collect it and forward it. I don't think it's mandatory. And I guess at some point when we revisit accommodations tax, which probably isn't the thing we need to do urgently, and the making sure that we're collecting all the accommodations tax that we should, we will add this to that discussion. Does that sound okay for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that if they put something in place and it looks logical and it's reasonable, that they do the work and we can borrow it.
I agree.
They do
Great idea.
about Airbnb, but I know for a fact that VRBO has that built in, and there are some issues related to how it works. And I think we need to probably do a little bit of a deeper dive into that one, but maybe not for today's discussion. How's that? Okay.
I just have one. I can't see the whole article, but I was just curious in Ocean City what the room tax is for hotels compared to Dewey Beach, because I know that's been a
Segue to our next topic, but I don't know if anyone know off the top of their head what Ocean City charges for their hotel tax.
I think it's 12, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
Google knows. I'll find out in a second.
Okay.
But that may not all go to Ocean City itself. It may partially go to the state.
Yeah, we don't know what the breakdown is. We
Right.
know what the breakdown is for Delaware. We may not know what Maryland's breakdown is. True.
Yeah, so it says 6% Maryland sales tax, 5% Ocean City room tax.
6 and 5, and what was the last 1%?
6% goes to the state, from what I just read, and 5% goes to the city.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's just 11. All right. Very good. Thanks. Okay, so we'll table that one for now, and we'll bring it back up when we get around to discussing, our accommodations tax collections. And that's a good segue. The next thing I wanted to bring up is in the workshop, what we agreed to do is this group come up with a recommendation for the hotel accommodations tax that's now been passed through the legislature. And today, what I'd like us to do is come to an agreement on what we will recommend to the commissioners in their next meeting on Friday, the 12th, and bring it before them. There's already an agenda item on the meeting for that. And so I'd like to open that with just a little backfill. As I understand it, and please correct me if I say anything in error, the legislative process is there and signed off. It's now up to us to do the necessary steps to begin the process of enacting the hotel accommodations tax. There was some discussion in the workshop about it being either 1.5% to start, which is what I think we've agreed to in the ordinance or whatever the legislative documents show. However, there was some discussion that maybe we should try a phased-in approach rather than go for the whole 1.5% at once. My personal feeling is, I think it is a valuable and dependable revenue stream, and we need more of those. I'm not looking to, create any undue burden on any particular part of the town's business community, but this has been long coming, and other towns around us have it. So I guess the discussion becomes, A, do we want to promote this as something and recommend it to the commissioners for their next meeting that we further our discussions on? And at what level should that be? I'll open it up for any discussion.
Dave, this is Dale Cook. Could I speak up for a moment?
Yes, Dale, please.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, it's called the hotel lodging tax. The accommodations tax is for short-term renters, homeowners in the town. The lodging tax is a hotel tax. Number two, it is a phased-in. It is recommended as a phased-in approach. When we passed it, it was up to 1.5 initially as of April 1st of this year, and then maximum of 0.5% per year after that. And each time it has to be specifically voted in if it's going to be had in the following years. That's all.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate that. That sets a good baseline for us. So the initial year's implementation would be up to 1.5% and can be implemented as of this beginning of this fiscal year. Although I think we'd agree at this point, there are several steps to be done here to open it up to public comment before, an ordinance is written and whatever else has to happen. What are the thoughts of the group here in terms of should we phase it even less to get started at something like 0.5 this year and something next year up to a 1.5 over a year or two's time frame? Let me have some feedback.
It's Lynn. I would rather have a set figure and let it ride for a couple years without causing confusion of one figure and then changing it again the next year and change it against the next year. Put it in and, give it 3 years or something like that, and then go back and look at it.
I would absolutely agree with that without machination. Here it is. It's a new thing. We haven't had it for a long time. Sorry, we need this. Let's go.
What is the current rate?
8%.
0.
Well, it's 8% that I believe is charged to the lodging tax, but that's all that goes to the state.
So the
And-
Dewey gets none of that, right?
We get
Well,
zero.
yes, we do. We get money for a marketing budget. I forget exactly how the breakdown heard.
Yeah, out of the
No,
8, 1% goes to Chamber of Commerce and 1% goes to beach replenishment.
Yeah, it doesn't come to the town.
Well, I would say based on the sales of properties and the demand for Dewey, this is a good year to institute this. And they're going to pass the cost on to the consumer. They're not paying, the hotels aren't paying for this. So, and I think people are willing to pay a bit more. It's still less than surrounding places.
Okay. Anyone else have any feedback, commentary? Zeke?
I think Jill's and Lynn's had great positive comments for it. I agree.
Okay. So we're going to suggest that we start it this year and begin it at what percentage? 1%, 1.5%?
I think 1 is an easy number to go with. It's flat, easy to understand. You're not a whole lot of math involved. Easy to divide. I'm Polish. I got to keep it simple.
Okay.
I think 1 sounds good, but I wouldn't say not to look again at raising it in the future because we just don't know what the future is going to bring right now.
Well, that each year there's no recommendation here that'll be anything other than we started at 1%.
Right.
And we'll take it up again in future years as needed, I think, as a part of the budgeting process, hopefully, and we'll deal with it. As Dale noted, it's a maximum of 0.5% increase each year possible. And if we do start at 1, we're already 0.5% under the what we can do. So any other feedback on 1%? Does everyone agree that that's the number we should recommend?
Yeah, I think 1 gives us a little fudge factor. Like you say, you can raise it. And we've also become, as Sheena put the numbers, really good on the transfer taxes. That's going to dry up eventually. You can't keep on the pace that we have been doing. So we're in the positive, great size of that, but we are going to have to realize one day it's not going to do what it is. And we do have that little buffer to raise from 1 to another 0.5% or 0.5% as necessary.
Okay.
Try not to bite all the fruit off at once.
Okay. So if we were to recommend to the council for their next meeting that they approve this and go ahead with the 1%, one of the commissioners, please speak up. What are the steps necessary and what's the timing? Will we be able to get it in place by the beginning of the fiscal year, April 1st, or would it take somewhere into the fiscal year before we think that the process could be completed.
Gary, this is Dale Cook. Gary, I'm gonna defer to you a little bit, but I think that we can vote it in, whatever the percentage is and whatever the lodging fee is to actually end up being. I think the commissioners can vote it in at this coming meeting.
I believe that's correct. I don't think there's any, I mean, it's basically just a change in our town code. And we already have the authority from the state. It's in our charter. So I think you're correct. I think we can vote it in at this next meeting.
Does it have to have an ordinance written for that?
It would have to have an ordinance written, yes.
Okay, and so if you vote to enact it at the next meeting on the 12th, then the following meeting, you would be able to have an ordinance prepared and be ready to sign off and take public comment?
Yes, I believe the process could work that way.
That sound about right to everyone?
Mm-hmm. That's the process.
And so that would in fact put us in a timeline that would enable us to build a line item into the budget that would approximate what we think the first year's amounts would be. Can we put our heads together? Who's the best person to do that exercise and try to figure that out? I think, Paul, last time we talked at the workshop, you had done a thumbnail sketch of the number of rooms in town and so forth. And can we, instead of recapping it now verbally, can we ask you to just write up your thoughts on that and pass it by Bill, and meaning Bill Zolper and Sheena?
Yep.
And let them look into it and see what number they think.
Yeah, and I think we should have, before we pass the tax, shouldn't we have a public hearing on it as well?
We went through all that, Paul.
Yeah,
I think
we went through the public hearing to get it to the state to allow us to do it. Now, if we're going to enact the tax, I think we need to have public, there's going to be a lot of business owners that are, that wasn't their greatest year ever, that's for sure. And I'm sure we're going to hear an earful on it.
I don't think there's a requirement for a public hearing. I certainly could be wrong about that, but I don't think it's a requirement. There will certainly be an opportunity for public comment at the meeting on the 12th.
Can we ask Bill Zolper to check with the town solicitor and see if he thinks that we're okay without a public hearing and just to go ahead with a public comment in our meeting?
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Good, very good. All right.
Hey, Ashley, quick question for you. Do we know how many hotel rooms we have? I think it's around 500, but I
don't know how many rooms. I can get back to you Monday on that. If you can give me a couple days to find out. And
I think it's just a round number. It's about 500 rooms, so give or take.
I'll get back to you by Monday on that for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, if I remember the town meeting we had years ago when we contemplated a 3%, it was somewhere around $550,000, given the average price of the hotel and the expected occupancy at 3%. So, but I guess we'll have a better number when Ashley gets us those figures.
Very good. So can I have a motion, please, to recommend to the commissioners that we move it forward at a 1% level for the hotel lodging tax in their next meeting?
So moved.
I'm going to make a motion first. I move that we the commissioners and ask them to pass the 1% accommodations tax.
Hotel lodging tax.
Hotel lodging tax. I'm sorry, I keep confusing those two. Sorry. Hotel lodging tax.
Second.
Second by Jill.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Very good. Okay. I have one other item here I wanted to cover before we open up the any questions. Jill and I had a conversation or two with Jim Dedes regarding the making sure that all of the building permit revenue associated with the Hyatt had been captured and was properly recorded. I think Jim had sent along something that was a sketch of a spreadsheet, but it was a little unclear to me that, we had a good record of that to date. Bill, I know you're just walking in on this whole situation, and I don't know if you've been made aware of that, but there's been some just questions about what has been collected for the Hyatt building permit build-outs, and has everything been accounted for? Have you been briefed on any of that discussion? Bill Zolper?
No, I haven't. I'm sorry.
Okay. And since Jim's not here today, and he had said he would have some information back to us that we could all look at, we don't have that today, but let's then put a bookmark in that conversation. And can you check with Jim and see what his status is on that? I know that I believe he was saying that the record keeping in our former building inspector's world wasn't as clear as, and that the current building inspector and Jim were trying to get all that information together, but we would like to get a final recap on that to make sure that everything's as it should be.
Yeah, I'll run that down.
Very good. I have no other items on the agenda here. Let me just recap what we've come to today. We have some potential new revenue that will be added as a line item to the current budget for the coming year that would represent the hotel lodging tax. Thanks, Dale. I'll try to commit that word to memory. And that, make sure I do it right. And that would, give us some leadway to adjust some other things potentially once we can clarify how much we think that amount will be. And because we are still trying to get to a zero-based budget. So let's see what that number turns out to be. We may then want to massage something like the donations bucket, which I've heard some people say we should be careful about how much we project for that. But I think we'll get one final pass of this. And what I would suggest is we'll try to schedule our next meeting to be before the town council meeting in March. And we will use that meeting as our last run and hopefully have a final version of this draft budget that we can all agree to during that meeting and promote that to the town commissioners meeting in early March to follow, which I think will be in the time frame needed. Bill, did you want to say something?
I think Sheena's going to say the same thing. I think we did a zero on the donations for this budget, and we're still above water on it. So, I mean, anything we would get on donations would just be a plus. Right, Sheena?
Oh, okay. Yep. And the marketing committee has already taken that up as a matter that they are running with. And so we think with their help, there will be some significant potential here. So, and I think that represents that. Let's try to see if we can schedule this next meeting. Ashley, do you have a date for the next commissioners meeting in March already set?
Yes, March is March 12th at noon is the time that it will begin as well.
Can we, there's a group here available on March 5th, then the week before that, same as we're doing this month, to meet, and hopefully we can finalize the budget and submit it to them for their consideration on the 12th.
March 5 is good for me.
Yeah.
Anyone have a conflict on March 5th? Same time, same channel?
I'll work on my work schedule and make sure that I'm hopefully available.
All right. All right, then that's what we'll do. We'll say March 5th at, oh, yes, Ashley.
I'm sorry. And just so you guys don't get in any mess for it, there's no vote on the agenda today. So if you can send it to the commissioners by way of a consensus of the committee, you can still recommend it to them. Right. But just don't do it by a formal vote.
Got it.
Okay.
Yes, realize that. Thank you. And so we're good for 3:30 on March 5th on the calendar then, Ashley? 3:30, same time. Okay, very good, on Friday the 5th. Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments that they'd like to make? We're done within the hour. It's now 4:10. Okay, happy hour for everyone. Have a good weekend, and if there's no further business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Could I just make a comment? I'd like to welcome our new town manager here, Bill, to the
Thank
park.
you. I appreciate it.
I
Thank you so much.
second that.
Thanks,
Welcome.
Bill. Thank you.
You'll have a chance to meet all these characters soon enough, Bill.
He meant stars.
And I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Yay.